My brother stole $50,000 from our parents and blamed me. At the family meeting, he smirked, "Prove it." I pulled out bank statements and said, "You mean this?" His face turned pale as everyone realized the truth. I never wanted to believe my own brother would stab me in the back. Not like this. Not in a way that would rip my family apart and leave my parents questioning everything they ever did for us. But life has a way of showing you people's true colors when you least expect it. It all started with a phone call from my mom. "Jason, something's wrong with the bank," she said, her voice shaky. I had just gotten off a job site, covered in sawdust, exhausted from a 10-hour day. My contracting business kept me busy, too busy to deal with the kind of panic I heard in her voice. "What do you mean, Mom?" I asked, rubbing the bridge of my nose. "Your father checked our savings today, and most of it is gone. We don't know how. We never touched it." That made no sense. My parents were meticulous with their money. They weren't the type to forget what they spent, and they sure as HLO wouldn't blow through their entire savings without realizing it. "How much is missing?" I asked. "A lot, Jason," she whispered. "Almost everything." My stomach tightened. "I'll be right over." I didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just some banking mistake. This was about to turn my entire family upside down. When I got to my parents' house, Mom was sitting at the dining table, a pile of bank statements spread in front of her. Dad was standing by the window, staring outside, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. I pulled out a chair. "All right, walk me through it." Mom slid the papers toward me. We had over $50,000 in savings. Now there's barely 5 left. I skimmed through the transactions. My heart started pounding. These weren't normal withdrawals. The money wasn't spent on bills or shopping. It was transferred. "You're sure you didn't authorize any of these?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Of course we didn't," Dad snapped. Mom placed a trembling hand on my arm. "Jason, if we didn't take it, someone else did." That was the moment it hit me. There was only one other person who had access to my parents' accounts. Only one person who had a history of bad decisions, a bottomless pit of financial problems, and a way of charming his way out of trouble. My younger brother, Caleb. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my anger in check. "Let me handle this." Caleb didn't even try to deny it when I called him. "Jason, relax," he said, laughing like I had just accused him of stealing a few bucks, not our parents' entire life savings. "Relax? You took $50,000 from Mom and Dad." I snapped. "What the HLO were you thinking?" "I was thinking that money was just sitting there, and they weren't using it," he said smoothly. "You've got to be kidding me." He sighed. "Look, we both know they have more money coming from their pensions. They're fine. I just needed a little help." "A little help?" I practically yelled. "That was their entire savings, Caleb. Do you even understand what you've done?" "Jesus, man, calm down. It's not like I blew it at a casino or anything." "Oh, really? I see that. Then where the HLL is it?" He hesitated. "It's tied up in some things right now." I closed my eyes. I already knew what that meant. Some dumb business scheme. Another investment opportunity that would never pay off. Caleb had been pulling this kind of crap for years, but this time, he wasn't screwing over some random investor. He was screwing over our parents. "You need to give it back," I said through clenched teeth. "That's not happening," he said, his voice suddenly hard. "Then you leave me no choice." I hung up before he could respond. The next day, I called a family meeting. Mom and Dad deserved to hear the truth from Caleb himself. When he walked into their house, he had the audacity to look bored. He strolled in like he had nothing to worry about, hands in his pockets, a smirk tugging at his lips. "All right," he said, flopping onto the couch. "What's the big emergency?" Dad's fists clenched. "You know what this is about, Caleb." Mom slid the bank statements toward him. "We want to hear it from you," she said quietly. He glanced at the papers like they were nothing. Then he leaned back, stretching his arms across the couch. "So what?" "I borrowed some money," he said. "Borrowed?" I snapped. "You stole it." Caleb rolled his eyes. "Jesus, you're so dramatic." "I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "When?" He didn't answer. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making all of us jump. "You selfish little." He cut himself off, taking a deep breath. "You betrayed us, Caleb," Mom whispered. "After everything we've done for you." Caleb had the nerve to laugh. "Oh, give me a break. You two have always favored Jason. He's the responsible one, the golden boy. Meanwhile, I've had to scrape by, figure things out on my own. You owe me." "Oh, you." Dad's voice was a low growl. "We paid your debts, covered your rent when you couldn't, gave you opportunity after opportunity to get your life together." "Not enough," Caleb muttered. I shook my head. "You're unbelievable. You expect Mom and Dad to just let this go?" He smirked again. "What are you going to do, Jason? Call the cops on your own brother?" The room went dead silent. I looked at my parents. Mom was crying now, her hands shaking. Dad looked like he wanted to punch a hole in the wall. Then I turned back to Caleb. "No," I said. "They are." His smirk vanished. Mom sniffled, looking up at him. "We don't want to do this, Caleb, but you've left us no choice." Dad's voice was firm. "We're pressing charges." Caleb's face drained of color. "You can't be serious." Pack your things, Dad said coldly. You're no longer welcome here. For the first time, Caleb looked scared. Wait, we don't have to do this. I, I can get the money back, I swear. Dad shook his head. We're done believing you. That was the last time we saw Caleb as a free man. I didn't feel satisfied when he was arrested. Just exhaustion. Mom and Dad had lost nearly everything, and it was going to take a long time to rebuild. I helped them move into a smaller house, made sure they were taken care of. As for Caleb, he went to prison. He sent letters, but none of us ever wrote back. Family is supposed to mean trust, loyalty. But when someone shatters that trust, sometimes the only thing you can do is let them go. And that's exactly what we did. Caleb's arrest didn't bring any relief. If anything, it made things more complicated. Mom barely spoke for days after the police took him away. She moved like a ghost through the house, lost in thought, barely touching her food. Dad tried to keep himself busy, but I caught him staring at the empty chair at the dining table more than once. I knew what they were thinking. No matter what Caleb had done, he was still their son. Me? I felt nothing but rage. At first, I tried to bury it, throwing myself into work, keeping my mind occupied with deadlines and schedules. But every night, I found myself replaying the confrontation, remembering the way Caleb had laughed at us. The way he had acted like we were the villains for holding him accountable. A few weeks after his arrest, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Jason, Caleb's voice came through the line, low and tired. I exhaled sharply. What do you want? Look, man. He hesitated. I screwed up, okay? I know I did. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping the phone. And I need your help. I laughed. I actually laughed. You have got to be kidding me. I'm serious, man, he said quickly. The lawyer they assigned me is a joke. If I don't get real help, I'm going to be stuck here for years. You have connections. Can't you talk to someone? You think I'd lift a finger to help you after what you did? He sighed. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Jason. I thought I could fix things before it got bad. Before anyone found out. Yeah? And how is that supposed to work? Were you planning to pull 50 grand out of thin air? I had a plan, he muttered. I scoffed. You always do, Caleb. And it never works out. He was silent for a long time. Then, in a voice I barely recognized, he said, I don't belong here, Jason. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe, passed through me. But then I thought of my parents, how they were struggling now because of him. Yes, you do, I said coldly. You put yourself there. I hung up. The calls didn't stop. At first, he tried to be apologetic. Jason, man, I swear, I'll pay it all back. Then, when I didn't respond, the guilt tripping started. Mom and Dad will never forgive you if you let this happen to me. When that didn't work, he turned to threats. You think you're better than me? You're not. You just got lucky in life. If things had been different, you'd be the one behind bars, and I'd be the one looking down on you. That one stung. Because the truth was, I had made my own mistakes in the past. Nothing like what Caleb did. But there were times when I wasn't the responsible one, when I was just another dumb kid screwing up. But I learned. I changed. Caleb never did. I blocked his number. A week later, Mom called me in tears. He wrote me a letter, she sniffled. Jason, I don't know what to do. He says he's sorry, that he's scared. I clenched my jaw. That's what he does, Mom. He manipulates people. He's only saying that because he wants something. But what if he means it this time? She whispered. I sighed, rubbing my face. Mom, you saw how he acted when we confronted him. He laughed in your face. He didn't care then, and I doubt he cares now. But he's our son. I didn't know what to say to that. Over the next few months, things didn't get any easier. Mom and Dad were trying to adjust to their new reality, but it was hard. They had lost their savings, their trust in their own child, and a part of themselves. I did what I could. Helped them move into a smaller home. Took care of any expenses they couldn't cover. But there was one thing I couldn't fix, the grief in their eyes. And Caleb? Caleb wasn't done causing problems. Even from behind bars, he still had one last trick up his sleeve. It started with another phone call. This time, it wasn't from Caleb. I was in the middle of measuring drywall at a job site when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first, but when it rang again a few seconds later, I pulled it out and saw Mom's name on the screen. Something in my gut told me this wasn't just a check-in. Hey Mom, what's Jason? Her voice was tight. I just got off the phone with Caleb's lawyer. I immediately straightened. Why are you talking to his lawyer? She hesitated. He says Caleb is taking a plea deal. He'll be out in 6 months. I felt my grip tighten around the phone. What? He cut a deal with the DA, she said, sniffling. If he pays some restitution and pleads guilty, they're reducing his sentence. Jason, I don't know how to feel about this. I didn't either. I had been prepared for Caleb to be locked away for years. For him to have time, real time, to reflect on what he'd done. 6 months? That wasn't justice. That was a slap on the wrist. Did you agree to this? I asked. No, of course not, she said quickly. But we weren't exactly given a choice. The DA said it was the best way to ensure he takes responsibility and doesn't fight the charges. I exhaled sharply, trying to calm the burning frustration rising in my chest. And what happens after 6 months? He just walks free. The court is ordering him to pay us back, she said. Little by little, they'll garnish his wages, and he has to stay out of trouble. I barked out a bitter laugh. And who's going to make sure of that? The same system that let him off easy. Jason. Mom, you know he's going to screw up again, I said. And when he does, he's going to come crawling back to you and Dad, expecting you to bail him out. Again. She was quiet for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, she said, I just don't know how to stop loving him. I closed my eyes. This was the difference between us. I could cut Caleb off. I could see him for what he was. But Mom, no matter how many times he hurt her, she was still his mother. She couldn't just flip a switch and turn that off. And I hated him for that. A few weeks later, the first payment arrived. It wasn't much, just a few $100s. Barely a fraction of what Caleb owed. But when Mom saw the check in the mail, her hands started shaking. I don't even know if I want to cash it, she murmured, running her fingers over his name on the check. You should, Dad said gruffly. He hadn't spoken much about Caleb since the plea deal, but I knew he was just as torn up as Mom. He just didn't show it the same way. Mom sighed. I guess it's something, right? A sign that maybe he's changing? I didn't say anything. I wasn't convinced Caleb had changed at all, and it didn't take long for him to prove me right. 3 months before his release, I got an unexpected visitor. It was a Saturday morning, and I was working under the hood of my truck when I heard a car pull into my driveway. I wiped my hands on a rag and turned, expecting a customer or maybe a neighbor. Instead, I saw her. Tessa, my ex-wife. And she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a man in a suit, mid-40s, slicked back hair. The kind of guy who looked like he never had to break a sweat in his life. A lawyer. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. What the HLL do you want? Tessa crossed her arms. We need to talk. I nodded toward the man beside her. Who's this? Your latest upgrade. The lawyer sighed, clearly unimpressed with my sarcasm. Mr. Whitmore, I represent Caleb. My stomach dropped. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered. Tessa shifted uncomfortably. He reached out to me. That was even worse. Why the HLL would he reach out to you? Because, the lawyer said smoothly, he's filing a civil suit against you. I stared at him, then laughed. A civil suit? For what? Defamation, the lawyer said. Emotional distress. Interfering with his ability to rebuild his life. I felt my blood pressure spike. Interfering? He stole 50 grand from our parents. And he took a plea deal for it, the lawyer said calmly. Which means the criminal case is settled. But the way you've gone around talking about him, telling family, mutual friends, and even people in the community that he's a thief, has caused him significant harm. Tessa finally spoke. Jason, I know we have our differences, but Caleb is trying to move forward. You're making that impossible. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You of all people are defending him. I scoffed. After what he did to Mom and Dad. She crossed her arms. People make mistakes. I took a step closer, lowering my voice. And people pay for them. That's what he should be doing. Not trying to turn this around on me. The lawyer adjusted his tie. He's within his rights to seek damages, Mr. Whitmore. I clenched my jaw. How much? 50,000. I laughed again, but this time, there was nothing amused about it. 50,000? Oh, that's rich. So he stole 50 grand, got caught, and now wants me to pay him that same amount. The lawyer didn't blink. We can settle privately. If you agree to stop speaking negatively about him and pay a reduced sum, we can avoid taking this to court. I turned my glare on Tessa. You really think he deserves another payday? She hesitated, then said, I think he deserves a chance. I took a slow breath, my hands tightening into fists. Get the HLL off my property. The lawyer sighed and tucked a card into his pocket. We'll be in touch. Tessa gave me one last look, something almost like pity in her eyes, before following him back to the car. As they drove off, I stood there, heart pounding, fury coursing through my veins. Caleb wasn't done screwing me over. I stood in my driveway for a long time after Tessa and that smug lawyer drove off. My pulse was pounding in my ears, my hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles ached. Caleb had always been a manipulative bastard, but this was a new level, even for him. I wasn't about to let him get away with it. The next morning, I met with my own lawyer, David Hensley, a no-nonsense, middle-aged guy with a thick mustache and a reputation for shutting down ridiculous lawsuits. I laid out everything. Caleb's theft, the plea deal, and now this bullcrap defamation case. David listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting something down. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. Your brother's got some nerve, he said. You're telling me. He flipped through the papers I'd brought. First off, this case is weak. Defamation requires proof that you knowingly spread false information. But the thing is, he tapped the table. Everything you've said is true. Exactly. That doesn't mean he won't try, though, David continued. People like your brother don't need a solid case. They just need to be a big enough pain in the SS that you consider settling to make them go away. That's never gonna happen, I growled. David smirked. Good. Because I love shutting down cases like this. Caleb's lawsuit didn't scare me, but it did piss me off. What did worry me, though, was the fact that Tessa was helping him. I hadn't thought about her much in the last few years. Our divorce had been messy, cheating, lies, an expensive legal battle that left me bitter and exhausted. But we'd mostly gone our separate ways, only speaking when it involved our daughter, Kaylee. Now, she was backing Caleb? It didn't make sense. Unless, I rubbed my temples, a sinking feeling settling in my gut. Caleb had always been good at charming people, manipulating them. He must have spun some sob story about being wronged by me, and knowing Tessa, she probably ate it up. But why? She had nothing to gain from this. Unless Caleb had something on her. I didn't have to wait long for my answer. A week later, Kaylee was staying over at my place for the weekend. She was 16 now, sharp as a knife and way too observant for her own good. Dad, what's going on with Mom and Uncle Caleb? She asked over dinner. I put my fork down. What do you mean? She frowned. Mom's been really weird lately. She and Caleb talk all the time, but she won't tell me why. I tried to keep my expression neutral. Did she say anything about me? Kaylee hesitated, then nodded. She said you were trying to ruin Caleb's life, and that you were being petty. I clenched my jaw. Jesus Christ. Kaylee studied with me. But that's not true, right? I sighed. No, Kaylee, that's not true. She bit her lip, suddenly looking unsure. Dad, there's something else. I straightened. What is it? She glanced at the hallway, as if checking to make sure no one else was listening. Then she leaned in. I heard Mom talking on the phone the other night, she whispered. She was really upset. She kept saying, I can't let Jason find out. A chill ran down my spine. Find out what? I asked carefully. Kaylee shook her head. I don't know, but she sounded scared. My gut twisted. Tessa wasn't just helping Caleb because she wanted to. She was helping him because she had to. Because Caleb had leverage. And I needed to find out what it was. I wasn't about to play detective on my own. I needed help. The next day, I called my friend Mark Holloway, a former cop who now worked in private security. If there was anything shady going on with Tessa and Caleb, he'd find it. Jesus, Jason, Mark muttered when I finished explaining. Your family's a goddamn soap opera. Tell me about it. I muttered. Can you help me or not? He let out a low chuckle. Yeah, I'll look into it. Give me a few days. I didn't have to wait that long. Less than 24 hours later, Mark called me back, his voice tight. Jason, you're not gonna like this, he said. Just tell me. He took a deep breath. Your ex-wife? She's in trouble. Big trouble. I gripped my phone tighter. What kind of trouble? Mark hesitated. Then he said the words that changed everything. She's got debt, man. And I don't mean missed a few credit card payments kind of debt. I mean, she's into some real nasty people for a lot of money. My stomach dropped. How much? Over 70 grand. I let out a slow breath. Jesus. Mark continued. And guess who she turned to for help? I closed my eyes. Caleb. Bingo. I ran a hand down my face. That's why she's backing him. He's holding it over her head. That's what it looks like, Mark said. Caleb probably promised her some way out of it. Maybe a deal with whoever she owes. My blood boiled. I knew Caleb hadn't changed. I knew he had another angle. And now, he wasn't just screwing over our parents. He was dragging my ex-wife into his mess, too. And if he was involved with dangerous people, that meant Kaylee could get caught in the crossfire. That was the final straw. Caleb thought he could keep playing games. He thought he could manipulate me, manipulate Tessa, and walk away clean. But he was about to learn something very important. He picked the wrong goddamn brother to mess with. I wasn't going to let Caleb win. Not this time. For years, he had gotten away with everything. Lying, stealing, manipulating. He always managed to weasel out of trouble, always found someone to bail him out. Mom, Dad, me, and now Tessa. But this time, I was going to make damn sure he faced real consequences. I wasn't going to hurt him. I wasn't going to threaten him. I was going to outsmart him. The first step was gathering proof. With Mark's help, I got access to Caleb's financial records. He was careful, but not careful enough. There were deposits and withdrawals that didn't add up, and then there were the transactions from Tessa's account to his. Small at first, maybe a few hundred here and there. Then they got bigger. She wasn't just helping him. He was extorting her. Mark also found something even more interesting. Caleb had been making payments to someone named Vincent Russo, a known loan shark. That told me two things. Tessa's debt was real, and it was dangerous. Caleb had made himself the middleman, handling the payments so he could control her. And that meant he had leverage. I just needed more leverage. The second step was setting the trap. I knew Caleb. He was CCKY, arrogant. He always thought he was the smartest guy in the room. And right now, he thought he had me cornered with this lawsuit. So I gave him exactly what he wanted. I had my lawyer, David, reach out to his legal team. We acted nervous. We hinted that I wanted to settle out of court. Caleb took the bait immediately. A meeting was set for the following week, neutral ground, a law office downtown. The goal? To negotiate terms for a confidential settlement. But I had no intention of paying Caleb a damn cent. When the day of the meeting came, I walked into the conference room calm, collected. Caleb was already there, wearing that same smug smirk he always had when he thought he was winning. Tessa was there too, looking exhausted. She barely met my eyes. The lawyers went back and forth for a few minutes, throwing out numbers. Caleb acted like this was just another business deal, like he was entitled to my money. And then, when the moment was right, I leaned forward and spoke directly to him. You really thought you had me, didn't you? I said quietly. His smirk didn't waver. I do have you. I slid a folder across the table. Not anymore. He hesitated, then flipped it open. Inside were printouts, bank statements, transaction histories. Proof that he had been funneling money from Tessa. Proof that he had been making shady payments. And at the bottom, the kicker, a notarized affidavit from Mark, detailing everything he had uncovered about Caleb's financial dealings. Caleb's smirk vanished. That, I said, nodding at the documents, is enough to prove you committed financial fraud. Not just against our parents, but against Tessa, too. His jaw clenched. This is bullcrap. Is it? I tilted my head. Because I'm pretty sure the DA would love to take another look at your case. Especially since you're still on probation. He knew what that meant. If I handed this over to the right people, his plea deal would evaporate. He wouldn't be out in 6 months. He'd be looking at years. I let that sink in. Then I dropped the second BMB. I also spoke to Vincent Russo, I said. Caleb paled. I smiled. Surprised? Yeah. Turns out Vincent isn't thrilled that you've been pocketing some of the money instead of giving it all to him. He and I had a nice little chat. Caleb swallowed hard. You talked to him. Oh yeah. And guess what? He's willing to settle Tessa's debt. Completely wipe it clean. I leaned in, lowering my voice. But only if she cuts ties with you. Permanently. Caleb's hands curled into fists. You son of a... Careful, I said, my voice deadly calm. You sue me, I take this evidence straight to the authorities. You fight me, I make sure Vincent gets real interested in what you've been doing with his money. Either way, you lose. Silence. Tessa stared at me, wide-eyed. She wasn't SDPID. She realized what I had just done. I hadn't just shut Caleb down. I had freed her from him. Caleb looked between me, Tessa, and the documents, his mind racing. He wanted to fight. I could see it. But he knew he couldn't win. Finally, he exhaled sharply and shoved the folder away. Fine, he muttered. Fine what? I pressed. He gritted his teeth. Fine. I dropped the lawsuit. I nodded. And he scowled. And I leave Tessa alone. I turned to my lawyer. Are you getting all this? David smirked. Loud and clear. I stood up. Then we're done here. A week later, the lawsuit was officially withdrawn. Caleb went silent after that. No more threats. No more calls. He had lost. Finally, Tessa, for all her past mistakes, did something I didn't expect. She actually thanked me. She admitted that she had been scared, that she let Caleb manipulate her because she didn't see another way out. I didn't forgive her for everything. Our past was too messy for that. But I did believe her when she said she was done with him. As for Mom and Dad, it took time. They struggled with what happened, but eventually, they saw Caleb for what he was. They stopped waiting for him to change. They stopped making excuses for him. And they finally, let him go. Caleb didn't go to prison again. Not yet, anyway. But without me, without Tessa, without Mom and Dad to bail him out, he had to face something far worse. His own failures. For the first time in his life, Caleb had to stand on his own. And I knew, deep down, that was the real punishment. Because without people to manipulate, without people to clean up his messes, he had nothing left but himself. And that was a fate worse than any revenge I could have planned.